Hi there, my lovely people. My name's Alex, and I run the Autism Acceptance page on Facebook. Obviously, if you're seeing this on Facebook, you will know that. If you're seeing it on YouTube, I'll drop a link in the comment section to my Facebook page where you can go along and check it out. I cover a wide range of topics from on autism from a neurodiversity standpoint. So yeah, if that's something you'll be interested in, then head on over to my Autism Acceptance Facebook page. Today I want to talk to you about autism and love, affection and touch. How did that make you feel? Were those mirror neurons kicking in? A lot of autistic people struggle with affection. A lot don't. And a lot of non-autistic people also struggle with affection, or people with sensory issues. I have a love-hate relationship with affection. I want it, but I get these sensations inside me. You see, you get biochemical feedback, which is a sensation you get which gives you, relays a cognitive message, and biochemical talkback, which is the pure sensation. Now, usually with feedback, it's shared with cognition, so the sensation, the internal biochemical sensation, isn't as strong. But with talkback, it can be strong. You noticed I'm holding this bear, cuddling it. Imagine it's a person. This bear is symbolising a person. Obviously it's small, so I don't mean to be anywhere near his butt or anything like that. His hand on his back, cuddling and snuggling. To have this done to you when you have sensory issues can be a little bit, give you the ick. Some people are cuddly, some people aren't. Some people wish they were, but their senses won't let them be. Now, just because you're an affectionate person doesn't mean you're going to be affectionate all the time. Just because you like certain foods doesn't mean you're going to want to eat them all the time. But when you're in the mood for affection, most people, I think, don't get too much of a squirmy sensation. The butterflies are relatively calm. With me, it's like the butterflies are flapping like crazy, and what's kind of sugary turns into too syrupy, if that makes sense. So imagine our biochemical sensations as tastes, or smells, so like a sensory cross-referencing thing. What I get from some touch, kisses and hugs often, is an overly sweet, sickly sensation, biochemical sensation, and I want the sensation, but I want it calmed down. It's happening to me automatically, so I have to try and channel it if I want to be affectionate, if I want to hug someone, if I want to snuggle with someone. I almost have to use it like a drug, because otherwise it gets too much, too sickly. I've had before where people have come up and given me a hug. I mean, there's people like, you've all had that, like, this, the smelly ant that stinks of tobacco comes up when, you're a kid. Oh, hi, how are you doing, my darling? And you're there, don't squirm, don't wriggle, don't squirm, don't wriggle. And they got you, this little kid, they got you in their arms and they scoot you up and your legs are dangling and you try not to kick. Oh, you don't want to be rude, but it's just like, get off me. And you're there tensing up and just like waiting for them to let you go. And then when they're not looking, you're like, ugh, ugh. You're wiping them off you. I think a lot of kids have had that feeling, but I kind of got it quite a lot. And there are some times where I wanted them, it kind of felt half nice and kind of too sickly, like you're allergic to the thing that you want. Imagine liking a food, but then also having an allergic reaction to it as well. So you're kind of torn between the ick and the snuggly sensation. And that's where I've talked before about using biochemical sedation. There's trauma-initiated biochemical sedation and self-initiated biochemical sedation. That's tuning into the physical sensation of your emotional states. So it's like a drug-like effect. So if it's trauma-initiated, you're doing it to get away from something. If it's self-initiated, you could be doing it for a number of reasons, including to dare exposure to something that you actually want, like a cuddle, like a kiss. But you're struggling to handle it. The internal sensations that should be butterflies are syrup. And you've got to jiggle that in your head and try to kind of lean into it without it making you sick. But then you end up with a kind of lightheaded sensation, as if you're drunk. Now, obviously, as an adult, if you haven't, we've all been in that situation. If you drink, where it's easier to cuddle someone, you've got a partner, and have you ever had a partner that said, "Oh, we only do it when you're drunk," or we only snuggle when you're drunk. You only initiate cuddles when you've been drinking, and because you're getting that kind of biochemical sedation. So if you're not normally an affectionate person, or when you are, it becomes too much. The sugar becomes too syrupy. So you need to be able to channel that in your head, or perhaps that's what, or you may use alcohol or something like that to deal with that. I mean, I'm not recommending you get drunk so you can have a cuddle. Don't tell anyone, don't say Alex from the Autism Acceptance page says you have to get drunk to have a cuddle, and now I'm an alcoholic. No, disclaimer, I did not say that. Okay, but yeah, it can be very hard for the person who's struggling with not being able to be affectionate, and it can be hard for their loved ones as well. If doing this, looking at me doing this, for me, if I see someone else being cuddled, then I get a kind of similar sensation, but no, maybe not as strong. But sometimes I'll think, oh, that's sweet, and I won't get that kind of syrups too much. it will stay more kind of like crystallized sugar rather than go into icky syrup. When I see someone doing it to someone else, but then someone doing it to me can feel too much, then the syrup starts to come in and make me feel sickly and squirmy. But yeah, it's all about sensory issues, and a lot of parents will sometimes take this to heart. They'll think that their child doesn't love them. Maybe they're not cuddly. I mean, neurotypical children sometimes can't be, aren't cuddly. But yeah, a lot of autistic children can have a particular aversion. But it can be hard on some parents, especially if they're taking care of them and they're trying to do everything that they can to look after them. And it's hard. It must be so hard for a autism parent, struggling, lonely, not knowing what to do, having the whole world judging you, trying to be a mama bear, fighting for your child. And all you want to do is hold your child in your arms, and they're either blatantly wriggling away from you, or like I did as a child, I just used to tense. I just tense up when I didn't want to indulge. I tense up and just try and block it out, just wait it out. But then if I wanted to cuddle, then I kind of like channel this biochemical sedation. It kind of calmed my nervous system a bit, because it gave me that kind of drunk in my head feeling. But yeah, it's hard for all concerned. Knowing that you want to be affectionate, but knowing that you're struggling with sensory issues that make it hard, make it hard for you and make it hard for everyone else. So yeah, parents, don't take it to heart. And you can dare exposure if you're autistic and you want to. I remember don't take this the wrong way, but I remember when I was a little kid and I got into my mum and dad's bed. Dad was still in bed, mum had got up, and I got into bed and I wrapped myself around my dad, my arms around my dad, and through this biochemical sedation, I was tense, but I was hugging him so tight, and I don't know what came over me, but I think there was something in there where I don't know, there was something, must have been something subconscious, something deep, where I wanted to hug him, but I couldn't, and he just lay there. He probably knew not to, it'd spoil it if he turned around and hugged me back. He spoiled the moment for him. But it was funny, I could sit on somebody's lap. I'd sit on my mum's lap. She'd read me a story. She was good at making up these stories. And I'd kind of narrate, how I wanted the story to go, sort of thing. I don't know, it's a typical PDA thing. But yeah, I'd be sitting on her lap and I'd be cozy, like that. But I'd be snuggling, but I wouldn't see it as snuggling. because it would just be, I'd be comfy. It was just like, my mum may as well be a cushion or a pillow, or just a comfy seat. I loved her. I love her. Don't get me wrong. I really do love her. But I separated the two things. Um, that really was just, I was able to shut off that kind of the biochemical, the syrup, by shutting off the emotion, by tricking my brain that I wasn't snuggling. I was just leaning into a comfy thing, and my mum was reading me a story. I wasn't cuddling, I was sitting on somebody's lap. They may have had their arm around me, they just didn't want me to fall. So as long as I could kind of logic that in my brain, and I did kind of get peeved sometimes if I moved, if I was holding little me on my lap. I mean, I do that with children anyway, or animals. If I'm holding them and they fidget, I'll facilitate that and kind of almost like assume they want to get down. So obviously you keep them safe so they're not falling. But you've seen people like their arms around their child, and their child's like little legs are kicking and they're like wriggling, and they're not struggling. They're perfectly happy. They're just fidgety. But for me, that looks like if somebody had done that to me as a kid, and then I suddenly thought, ooh, that I'm moving, they're still tight holding me. I wonder if I could actually get away from them if I had to. And then I might, actually I wouldn't have started to struggle, because I'd be too scared that I wouldn't be able to get away from them. And because I wasn't actually like fighting, I was just moving around. Although I'd be wondering whether I could get away or they'd let go if I did fight, I wouldn't be, I'd be too scared to try it. Because if they didn't let me go and I wasn't strong enough to get away, then I would end up having a panic attack. And that's another thing. There's claustrophobia as well. You think that holding a child when they're wriggling, and they're not, first of all, it's a complete boundary violation, to overpower someone for a cuddle. And I think with a child, especially a neurodivergent child, it's dangerous because it's showing them that it's okay to hold someone against their will, and it's not. It is never okay to hold someone against their will. In an emergency, you have to do what you have to do, but you move heaven and earth, I think you should do, to avoid restraints. And if you have to restrain, then you do it for safety, and you use the the most minimum amount of force and the most minimum amount of intrusion, and you always facilitate that tuning out they might do, or hopefully be able to do, to kind of tune out that sensation. But also, I found for me, panic, sorry, excuse me, panic also made me blocked that biochemical sedation, because my brain told me I needed to be alert. I remember a time when I was in nursery school, my mum was not impressed, and I was being given medicine, and I didn't like the taste of the medicine. When I took it for Mum, she gave me a drink of orange squash or whatever, and I'd have that in my hand, and she'd give me the medicine in a spoon, and I'd be able to drink the squash straight after the medicine. So the taste of the icky, yucky medicine, I wouldn't have that for too long. Well, it was medicine time in school, wasn't it? So I was nursery. I was about 3-4 years old, and I remember they took me into the hall, where there was like the dinner hall, and they did games as well, in that place. And there was a long table and long bench, and one of them sat me on the bench, and I didn't want to, I didn't want to take the medicine, and I'm going to put this down now because that's cuddle, and I'm talking about restraint. They tried to give me the medicine, I wouldn't take it, and the next thing, the nursery assistant had me on a lap and had her arm around me, trying to pin my arms down. I struggled, and I got away from her. I was 3-4 years old, and she got me again, and I wriggled, and I struggled, and I squirmed, and she could hold me, but she couldn't get the medicine down me. She let go with one hand, and I was wriggling away from her. I was a hot mess. I was panicking. I was in a state. So another assistant came along. Sorry, I should have put a trigger warning on this. If you want to skip this now, and watch the rest of the video, I will put my hand up when I finish talking about this. Okay, so skip it now if you find restraint too distressing, because it's quite graphic. Okay, so this other nursery assistant came up, and they laid me across their laps. I was hysterical. My little legs were pedaling furiously, cycling, kicking, struggling, bucking, writhing, trying to bite. No, I wasn't trying to bite them. I clamped my mouth shut because I was scared they were going to get, the medicine. I thought, I hate this medicine. The two of them, I don't know if they couldn't, I clamped my mouth shut and they couldn't get it in my mouth. The two of them were holding me, and controlling me. It took two of them. I was 3 or 4 years old. I was hysterical. And then the head teacher came along and held my nose. So I now had 2 of the nursery assistants, one holding my top half, the other holding my legs, stop me kicking. And now the head teacher, she held my nose and trying to hold my rolling head still, so that I'd open my mouth to take the medicine. Now can you imagine? There's now 3 people pinning me down, and I can't breathe because the head teacher's holding my nose. I had to open my mouth, in went the spoon. I turned my head and spat out the medicine. Eventually they gave up. They called my mum. My mum came over. She brought my juice. She put the medicine on the spoon, gave me the spoon, gave me my cup. I took the medicine, I chased it with the juice, take away the yucky taste, and then she played hell with the teachers, the 3 teachers that held me down and force-fed me that medicine. So the thing is, the arms that cuddle are also can be the arms that restrain. And if you've got an autistic child, especially someone who's I hate the term profound autism, but for someone who's really impaired by their autism and who's got integration problems and problems with information processing, how are they there constantly? Not so much now, restraint is frowned upon, but constantly in the past, autistic people have been restrained. And then the parents who are like this, and their kids' little legs are kicking and their little arms are trying to wriggle out of the thing, and their heads going and they're thrashing and struggling like mad. And then you want a cuddle, and what do? Encircling again. Do you not think they got that memory? On top of the sensory issues, on top of the biochemical ick, you restrain your child on a regular basis. If you restrain your child, especially on a regular basis, your autistic child who's got sensory issues and processing issues, and then you expect to be able to use the same motion to cuddle them. Yeah. Can you not see? Surely anybody can see how this isn't going to play well with the child. So if you want to be affectionate with your child, if you want your child to be affectionate with you, for me, I didn't care about deep pressure. Sometimes if somebody was too, if they were too demonstrative and they were gentle, then that would feel incongruent, and that would give me the squirmies. That would make me, give me the syrup. But generally for me, a gentle touch, gentle affection was best for me. But I know some people find like gentle, they prefer deep pressure hugs. But I think it's important to do them in a way that the child knows they can escape. If they know that, if you can't hold them and they know they can get, they can wriggle away from you, although hopefully you haven't had to test that, then, they're not going to be worrying about getting away from you because they know they're strong enough to fight you off anyway. So I guess that's the ideal thing. But you getting the fine line between giving them a deep pressure hug, giving them a firm cuddle, and them being able to not feel trapped, I think is important. So that's kind of sitting on your lap and then they're fidgeting and they're not struggling, they're just fidgeting. But you keep hold of them, you don't kind of hands off and let them move into a, position where they're comfy and okay now, yeah, snuggle again. You keep hold of them. Although they're not fighting to get away from you, for me, I was getting the message like, ooh, I'm moving, I know I'm sort of only fidgeting around, but ooh, if I was to struggle, would I be able to get away? Would they let me go? And that's kind of in my mind, and I didn't want to, I wasn't a fighter. The only time I would struggle to get out of somebody's arms is if I was scared. Otherwise I just freeze. But I think those sort of things need to bear in mind when you are cuddling a child who's autistic or who's got sensory issues, that an encircling hug and an encircling restraint can feel like the same thing. Okay, I hope you found this useful. Love and peace. Oh, just one more thing. I think I said it at the beginning. We need to be teaching kids about consent. I've learned on my page there's a lot of dodgy stuff going on. Autistic people are classed as these marginalised people, and trans, and got into sex work and all the rest of that crap. So one of the reasons that I'm averse to sex work for anyone really, but especially for neurodivergent autistic people, because a lot of them, sadly, especially in the past, have spent their childhoods being restrained, struggling to get out of somebody's arms or out of people's arms, not being able to escape. So you come along and do BDSM or sex work, you've got somebody like, especially like a woman, and a man, and trans women are men. So I don't care whether you're a trans woman or a man or whatever. If pound for pound, you're going to be stronger than that woman. If they've been taught as a child by adults that they can be held and they can struggle and they can fight, but they haven't got control over their bodies, that they've been forced